Hello and welcome to Just the Way It Is. My name is Carl and this is episode 5. So this is a series of videos all about multi-strata ownership. Now part 4 was an unexpected change of sequence of what I'd planned in terms of the sections I'm going to cover, because I had a gear selector spring failure. There are 2 springs inside the left-hand casing and I had a spring that broke, so that was unexpected and quite a bit of repair work on my part. If you're interested, go back and watch part 4. So I've changed the sequence of which I plan to do things. So I thought it's probably appropriate that I cover some of the problems with the multi-strata. And there are some problems, there are some issues. Most of them are electrical things you need to look out for. So I'm going to break this into 2 sections. So today I'm going to talk about what I've experienced with my bike. And that is different to what other people experience and talk about with their bikes. So we need to keep these 2 things separate. So just to confirm, in case you've not watched any of the other videos, this is a 2013-14 year model. This is the dual spark version. And this is the base with the full manual suspension, no electronic suspension. So what have I had go wrong? Well, from day 1, which was a bit disappointing, when I picked the bike up, the horn didn't work. Not a big issue. I went back a couple of weeks later to the dealer and they fixed it. And then about a month later, the horn stopped again and I had to go back. It now has and continued to work without a problem. Heated grips. This is quite a common problem on the multi-stratas. And if you have heated grip failure, it's probably going to be a left-hand grip. Now the reason why it's the left-hand grip, because it's the left side of the bike where you operate the center stand. So when you're grabbing the bike and you're pulling on and off the center stand, it's this grip that gets all that twisting and torque through those rubber grips. Ducati want €260 because you get the complete mechanism that comes on this side. It's quite expensive. And so I did a bit of research and I found that actually what you can do, and it worked out to be brilliant, is put some Oxford grips on. Now, I'll put a link to the model number I actually use. It's a fairly straightforward job. There is a little bit of work and a bit of cutting. You're going to need a Dremel tool to fit the grip on this side, and you have to be careful not to crack and break the throttle tube. It's really important, so you have to be careful and take your time. But what I did, which is probably quite different to what most people do, is I've wired it directly in to the Ducati system. So the heated grips still function from the starter button. And it sounds really strange. Once you've started the bike and your lever's in the up position, it's this starter button that turns on your heated grips, and you can select minimum, medium or high. So I wired the Oxford grips directly into the Ducati system. Now the temperature control is actually controlled by the dashboard. Part of my training, I did quite a bit of electronics, and I can tell you that the readings for the grips from the Oxford grips are very similar in terms of ohms to the original grips. I think the good reading on the right-hand grip was 114K, that's ohms, and the Oxford grips were fairly similar. So I did some testing on the bench and I found that it was pretty close. So I took a gamble, installed them, and they're brilliant. The Oxford grips are a bit thicker than the standard Ducati grip, which I actually like. I've got quite large hands. They're very grippy, and I find for the most part, minimum or at highest, medium is more than enough. Even on very cold mornings, we're talking sub 10 degrees, and I'm on the road on tour, perhaps it's pouring with rain, medium I only really have for 10 or 15 minutes, and then I back it back to minimum again. They will run on the high setting, but they're really hot. So I think everybody's different. Some people complain about grips not being hot enough. Somebody else tries it and says they're fine. So horn, heated grips, it's the left-hand side. Pull the cover back, stick your multimeter on there, set to ohms, and you want about 114K. If you don't get that, and also they work in series, so they're not in parallel. So that means that if one stops working, they both stop working. So you need to check both sides. You're probably going to find it's the left, but the way the system works, it works as a complete series. So if one part of that series breaks or has a problem, the whole lot fails. So it's going to cost you quite a bit if you go to Ducati. 260 is for the kit, plus fitting, plus labour. Oxford grips, I think they were €68, really good on Amazon. Top quality. If you want the functionality of the controller, I wanted to keep the clean look and I wasn't worried about all the different heat settings and the automatic on and off because I didn't want to connect it direct to the battery under the seat. So mine's integrated into the Ducati system, so there are no additional wires and nothing that looks out of place. So other issues. Fuel tank sender, the fuel gauge. This happens to a lot of people. And I don't blame the Ducati dealer that I bought the bike from, because unless they're doing a test with a tank of fuel, they probably would have never spotted it. But I had a problem from day one, and the problem is this. So the fuel gauge is made up of different segments, different bars, and I didn't notice for the first tank of fuel, but eventually I noticed that when I fill up, I get all the bars, and then I would do 50, 60 kilometers, and it would drop one bar, and then it wouldn't drop for 120 kilometers, and then it would drop 3 bars. So 2 segments of the sending information to the display failed to work, and that turns out to be a fairly common problem. If you look on the Ducati parts list, the part has been revised. I think when I last looked, they're on version H, so you've got the Ducati number followed by a letter at the end. They started on A, then B, C, D, E, F, G, H, and I think this is a H that they fitted to this one. It's quite a lot of work. I didn't do it, I had Ducati do it, and the reason I had Ducati do it is A, it was under warranty, and B, with everything Ducati, if you fit something electronic, it's normally got to be coded to your bike and to the system. So not only do they have to install the fuel sender unit, which goes from the bottom of the fuel tank, you can't take the top off and get at it easily, it comes from underneath, it then has to be coded. Nothing else has failed, nothing else has gone wrong. There's lots of talk on the forums about all kinds of other problems, but I'm going to cover that in a later video, but I just wanted to share what it is for me and what I've had go wrong and cause problems. And one thing, before I move off of the topic of the fuel tank sender unit, mine was not right from day one. After I established that I had a problem, I phoned the Ducati dealer, explained what the problem was, and I obviously went in twice to have the horn fixed, and they said, it's not a problem, it's a fairly common thing. We need to order the parts, come back later on, continue to ride the bike. And that's exactly what I did. You've got a trip meter. I get around 300 to 350 kilometers every single tank full. It's amazing on fuel considering the performance. You're into, in terms of miles per gallon, 50 is the minimum. You might drop into the high 40s if you're really on it 2 up. But for the vast majority of the time, I'm in mid-50s, which is quite amazing for the performance. And that works out to be around 5 litres per 100 kilometres. Eventually, when the fuel tank sender unit completely failed, I had error messages on the dashboard. But up until then, I got 8 months of bike riding, knowing that there were 3 segments not working. And I just kept going. I was having so much fun, so much riding on the bike. I didn't want my bike to go in and had the sender unit changed, but eventually it actually failed and it comes up with an error message. You can still ride the bike, you can still use your trip computer to work out where you are with fuel, and if that happens, the thing to do is to, if you're on tour or you're on holiday, fill up with fuel, reset your trip meter, and you know you've got an easy 350 kilometers of fuel before you need to refill, and so you don't have to depend on your fuel gauge, which is now not working. So they're the 4 problems. Which, yeah, when I think about it, of all my Hondas, I had no problems whatsoever. I had a battery failure on one of the CBRs. Other than that, servicing, maintenance, I changed wheel bearing. Actually, I put a new wheel bearing in the front of this before the last tour. It hadn't failed, but I was just hearing this slight noise, and jack it up, get someone to sit on the back seat, spin the wheel, and the bearing was ever so slightly noisy, so I have put a new front wheel bearing in. What else have I done? That's about it. So in terms of reliability, it's been okay. I kind of was prepared for electronic issues, and it has had them: horn, heated grips, fuel tank sender unit, and now the gearbox springs or the gear selector springs. So am I happy? Yeah, I think so. It's not going to make me want to sell my bike. It's still fabulous. It does everything I wanted to do, although my riding is slowly, the type of riding I'm doing is slowly changing. But having said that, it's all still great. So I hope that's helpful. In the forthcoming videos, I'm going to cover what other owners experience in terms of issues, and there are some things. Electrical problems, ABS sensors, gear selector sensors. There are some other issues that other people experience, and I'm going to cover them in a later video. I hope you've enjoyed it, and more videos to come. Thank you very much.